Today we'll find out one thing which you most likely least expected to find in my channel on YouTube. No, SRAM lovers, it's not about electric shifting. But road bike hasn't been yet on the channel, and it's summer upcoming. All dusted and rusted from the autumn. I actually ridden with it last time probably in September. It's pedal-less. We've been in Naples with actually road bikes, but I just took Garmin pedals, have power meters. In Italy we had almost 400 kilometers, almost 4K of elevation. Been riding road bikes, which was something uncommon
for me.
On the road bike,
6 days in the saddle, and my first time on road bike. I don't know.
It's Giant Defy Advance 2, 2018 model, with very few modifications to it. Still alloy wheels, which I haven't changed yet. One of the most crucial things I've done for this bike, which I hated almost from the day one, is eliminated that giant conduct system from the handlebars, changed everything, whole set, the levers, the brakes, and that was almost the only change I have done, as well as changing the cranks from lower ends to 105th group set. So that's pretty much all the changes done for this bike. Today, at the end of April, I'm going to ride it for the first time this year. I realized that some things has to be done. One of which is adding sealant. Actually, I don't know whether this issue applicable for ours as well, but on the road bike, I used to get drop of air pressure. I'm going to add some sealant through the valve. And if you're using stance, casual tire sealant versus race sealant, be aware that this one can be added with syringe through the valve, while the race sealant is not recommended to do so. So for that reason, you won't be able to put it with syringe, and you would have to open up the tire bed. Usually I'm just using some paper towel to make sure that it doesn't get over the place, and I will just add 30 millimeters or so. The reason why I still have original wheels on this bike, I don't compete with it anywhere, so the speed is secondary. At the same time, I live in an area where it's not a lot of tarmac roads variety, so doing the same roads a lot of times, it's just a bummer. Usually I add like 7.5. I guess it's not the best one. It's not MTB, where you can win anything from that. The reason I did this is because the tires being completely flat, and it seemed that it might not bed on the sides, but it did. Holding the tire a bit more upright than just leaving it down to the bottom, because when you add the sealant and you inflate air, then you are doing that with the valve at the bottom. You are basically pushing air into the sealant, and it bit clogs the valve itself, so that way it's better to do so. Caliper seems to be touching, so we will fix that. What the? Surprisingly, like, or maybe not surprisingly at all, Torx, not hex. The Giant wouldn't be a Giant if it won't have some interesting decisions. I don't know whether it's on all road bikes, but here it's been Torx bolt for the caliper. All right. By default, I just took hex and expected that it will fit. Apparently not necessarily. Last remaining thing is to add the pedals. I'm using vectors, already changed the batteries. Always make sure to grease the threads a bit, so that way it will help you to eliminate the pedals more easily when needed. Don't be too generous, but at the same time add it a bit. Actually, recently learned very good trick how to install the pedals, so it will be the last time you will have headaches how to torque the pedals or untorque them. So basically the rule of thumb is, if you want to tighten them, you turn the key opposite direction from the rear wheel, so it's down on the left side. It's down. So if you would want to untighten it from the non-drive side, you would turn it towards the wheel. And the same thing applies from this side. In that logic, in order to tighten it, you would have to clock it clockwise. And that's how the road bike becomes usable. Whoa, 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 whoa. Forgot that it's not MTB and it doesn't have the clutch. Oops. All right. Last thing to add about the whole Giant Defy Advance 2 is that conduct braking system was not only looking terrible, it also didn't brake as good as hydraulic brakes. Basically, it's a hybrid version of brakes where you have cable actuators which actually pushes hydraulic fluid to your pistons and to the caliper, so that whole system in front was for that purpose. Was the hard time to sort everything out? Well, I made some swaps in the Ritchie handlebars, which was a bit tricky, but with trial and error you can do basically anything. So a few last things to check before going for the ride is make sure that bottle cages are tight enough so it won't rattle, and as long as shifting is fine, which I will check in a moment, I'll be ready to go with this road bike. That's pretty much it. Will we see some racing on the road bike? I can't promise that, but talking about the wheels, I also changed the tires on this bike. Nonetheless, it's pretty slow compared to road bikes, and in upcoming future I will do weight-in of all of my bikes, so we will have a bit of understanding how those rockets are weighted in terms of that mass. Last thing before I go out, I will make sure to calibrate the vectors to make sure that the cranks are perpendicular to the ground. Probably it would be just better to do it on the ground. Failed. Nice. What should we do then? Takes a while. If I were to buy our road bike, it would definitely be with integrated cockpits, because this, apart from the fact that it slows you down somehow a bit, it just looks not so neat.